As of the moment I'm recording this video, Russell Westbrook and the Los Angeles Clippers have just won Game 1 against the Phoenix Suns, stealing home court advantage in this deceptively high-stakes first-round series. It was a dominant performance by Westbrook. He was hounding Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on defense all night long. He had some crucial offensive boards, and he came through big in the clutch. This is in spite of a horrendous shooting night from him. In fact, people have been joking that this is the greatest 3 of 19 game in NBA history. Interestingly enough, there has arguably been a better 3 of 19 game in NBA postseason history. One player recorded a stat line of 19 points, 21 rebounds, and 14 assists in an NBA postseason game. That player's name? Russell Westbrook, who did so in Game 4 to lead his Wizards to a win against the Sixers and avoid a sweep. It wasn't exactly the highest of stakes, but that Wizards team had no business even being in the postseason, and the only reason they were in the postseason was Russell Westbrook. For someone who supposedly built his career on empty stats, Westbrook's impact sure does often eclipse his box score numbers. But then again, there are few players whose accolades and body of work are so much at odds with the general narrative about him. The attitude of many members of the basketball media has been nothing short of unhinged, and has only gotten worse in recent years with his physical decline. There isn't really any reason to go into specific examples because anyone who follows the sport has heard these talking points, but I will give some examples anyway. Ryan Russillo basically retconned Russ's entire career and acted like he was both a loser and a coach killer everywhere he's gone, which is demonstrably false. Kevin O'Connor dismissed the Clippers' title chances just by virtue of having Westbrook on their roster. I know choosing examples from the ringer might be low-hanging fruit, but even Zach Lowe, someone who undoubtedly knows a lot about the NBA, called the Clippers signing a former MVP at league minimum one of the riskiest midseason moves in NBA history. Like, okay, Zach, you can disagree with the signing, but calling it a high-risk move is just absurd. They needed a point guard and they signed one at the league minimum. How is that a risky move? And the signing has worked out well. In 21 regular season games with the Clippers, Russ has averaged 15.8 points, 7.6 assists, and 4.9 rebounds on nearly 49% shooting from the field. That's pretty good for a player who so many presumed would be out of the league once the Lakers let him go. It's not complicated to see how the Russ-Lakers experiment failed. It was a combination of bad salary and bad fit. Russ was getting paid like an MVP, because he was on the contract he earned after winning the MVP. In turn, that hampered the Lakers' ability to build a more talented roster. Moreover, Russ is not the type of point guard you can easily pair with LeBron because he needs the ball to be effective and it doesn't make sense to take the ball out of LeBron's hands. It's not rocket science. But the fact that Russ is still talked about so negatively even now as a member of the Clippers, the fact that he still garners so much negativity in spite of being a productive point guard on league minimum salary, indicates that these anti-Russ sentiments are more than merely the product of basketball analysis. There is some level of personal vendetta. I think the blog boys have a genuine antipathy towards Westbrook, and I think it boils down to a primordial fear. In a league of super athletes, Russ somehow seems so much more athletic than anyone else. Even now when his age is catching up to him, it's impressive to watch him lead a fast break. I mean, just look at his block on Devin Booker tonight. How many players have the ability to not only make that block, but get the save right after? He's still the fastest guy on the court most nights too. For years and years, they held this sublime athleticism against him, as if it was a violation of the sanctity of the sport for someone to rely on superior athletic ability. As basketball fandom becomes increasingly similar to that of baseball, with its unapologetic embrace of analytics, the Venn diagram of stat nerds and basketball fans has started to look more and more like a circle. But sports are, above all, for the purpose of entertainment. And while basketball has not been around for that long, I'm sure that if you showed a video of a Russell Westbrook transition dunk to a caveman, the caveman would understand its appeal. Russ's game is chaotic and, above all, fun. That's a big crime for nerds whose every basketball opinion must be based on what's quantifiable. Now, we've talked a bit about Russ as he is right now in 2023, but ultimately, while current Russ has clearly proven that he not only belongs in the league, but can still be a high-impact player, what's more fascinating about the revenge of the nerds is how Russ's entire career, including his prime in his MVP form, has effectively been retconned. For example, there's the aforementioned notion that Russ has always been a losing player. All those deep playoff runs in OKC have been retconned to where any credit for going deep into the playoffs is given to KD, and any blame for coming up short is necessarily given to Russ. Sorry to bring up Russillo again, but he has this weird thing where he still pretends like KD leaving OKC was KD fleeing Russ. This is in spite of the fact that from his burner Twitter account, KD trashed everyone at OKC except Russ. I mean, Paul George, who played with Russ at OKC for 2 years, openly and actively recruited Russ to the Clippers after Utah put him on the buyout market. When Victor Oladipo became an all-star for the first time, he credited Russ. Former teammates not only like Russ, but they like playing with him. Some may say, oh, but his game is flawed. Oh, he can't shoot. Well, you better be thankful for that. In his 2016-2017 MVP season, Russ shot 34.3% from 3. This was slightly below league average. which was 35.8%, although it was slightly better than OKC's league worst percentage of 32.7%. That one year where Russ shot okay from three, he was literally unguardable. Another interesting point about Russ's MVP season: he led the league in VORP, or value over replacement player. This was so distressing to the statistics community that they changed how VORP is calculated, simply to rectify this supposed mistake. Now, will the same community change defensive raptor, which is trying to gaslight us into thinking Nikola Jokic is a top 5 defensive player? Somehow I doubt it. Ultimately, the nerds have their biases just like everyone else, and that's fine. But what's not fine is how they try to present their biases and prejudices as fact, as absolute. But more importantly, hating on one of the greatest point guards of all time while he's on league minimum salary just makes you a joyless bore.